Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I was job hunting. After sending out dozens of applications with no responses, I tried a more direct approach. That's how I ended up at the pet store dressed in my nicest shirt and slacks, filling out a job application on their computer kiosk. The store was quiet that afternoon, just a few customers looking at the animals. I focused on my application, typing and checking my cheat sheet, another application with all my information. It's hard to remember all that stuff on the spot. I was halfway through when someone stood next to me. I looked up and saw a woman in her mid-40s with highlights in her hair. She asked if I could answer some questions about the rabbits in the enclosure next to the kiosk. I looked at the rabbits, white with patches of brown. I've had rabbits before, so I said yes. She wanted to know how much work rabbits were. Her daughter wanted one, but she didn't want to take care of it when her daughter got bored. I saved my application and turned to her. I told her rabbits needed daily attention and weren't as easy as people think. I talked about cleaning their cage, making sure they have fresh hay and water, and giving them time outside to exercise. The woman asked if rabbits bite. I told her they usually don't if handled properly, but they get scared easily, so gentle handling is important at first. She nodded and looked closer at the enclosure, tapping on the glass. A small white rabbit with floppy ears hopped closer. She said that one was cute and asked about the price. I looked for a price tag but didn't see one right away. When I said I wasn't sure, she asked if I could check. I looked at the tag on the enclosure. There was a small card with information, and I pointed to it, saying the rabbits were $45.99. She thought that was reasonable and asked about supplies and what she would need to buy. I listed the essentials while turning back to my application. I still had a lot to fill out before the store closed. I told her she'd need a cage, water bottle, food bowl, pellet food, hay, bedding, and that would cost about $100 to start. As I typed on my application, she asked about the best brand of food. I told her I used Timothy hay and oxbow pellets for my rabbits. They cost more but were good quality. She said I knew a lot about rabbits. I told her I had a couple when I was younger. I kept working while she asked about feeding and care. She seemed excited about the rabbit. Then she asked if she could hold the white rabbit with floppy ears. That's when I realized she thought I worked there. I stopped typing and told her I didn't work at the store and was just applying for a job. Her expression changed from friendly to confused to angry. She asked why I hadn't told her earlier, since she'd been asking me all these questions. I said she asked if she could ask me about rabbits, and since I've had rabbits before, I didn't mind helping. She said I acted like I knew everything and even told her the price. I said I just read the price tag, and I know about rabbits from experience, not from working there. She crossed her arms, upset about wasting time talking to me when I couldn't help her buy the rabbit. I saw an employee walking by and waved them over, telling them this lady needed help with adopting a rabbit. The employee, a teenager with a store uniform and name tag, greeted the woman and offered to help with the rabbits. The woman looked at me before telling the employee I had pretended to be staff and given her information about their rabbits. The employee looked confused and at me. I said I didn't pretend anything. She asked me questions, and I answered because I've owned rabbits. I made it clear I don't work there when she asked to hold one. The woman said I nearly convinced her to buy one and talked about food brands and cages. The employee said sorry for the confusion and asked if she would still like to see their rabbits. The woman said no, she would go to the other pet store where they have staff who don't let random people give out information. She walked off, leaving the employee and me standing there. The employee said sorry to me. I said it wasn't their fault and mentioned I had just applied for a job there. The employee laughed and said I already knew about the animals, which was good. They also said I now had experience with difficult customers. I laughed and gathered my things. The employee said everything I told the woman about the rabbits was accurate. They said I probably would have made the sale if I worked there. I hoped this wouldn't count against my application. The employee said they would tell their manager that I almost made a sale without working there. I left feeling hopeful. I didn't get called for an interview that week, but about 2 weeks later, I got a call offering me a part-time position. During orientation, the manager mentioned my pre-employment sales skills. I guess dealing with entitled people can work out in your favor sometimes. I ended up in a screaming match at a hospital. Let me explain how a blood test turned into a disaster. I'm a 46-year-old mom with a special needs daughter who's 25. She needs yearly blood work to check her medication levels. It's routine stuff but not fun for either of us. My daughter gets anxious in medical settings. I need to be there to keep her calm. Our usual lab was closed because of construction. We had to pick from a list of other locations. We ended up at a hospital complex. Not one big connected building, but several identical buildings scattered around with no clear signs. I've been there before, and it's hard to find your way. The address doesn't exist on GPS. You just have to know where you're going. Every time we visit this place, we end up lost. We were running late for our appointment. I picked a random building that had pharmacy listed outside. I thought maybe the lab would be nearby. Inside there was no help, no information desk, no directory. Just a coffee stand and two signs. One sign had tiny print listing what was on each floor. The other was a big arrow pointing toward pharmacy. I sighed with frustration. Two older women approached me. They looked like mother and daughter too, one around 50s and the other around 70s. The younger one came up to me. The younger woman asked if I knew where the pharmacy was. I told her I didn't know exactly, but pointed to the pharmacy sign with the arrow. She thanked me and started walking that way. I asked if she knew where the blood draw lab was. She turned around with a smile. She told me it was in the next building over. She said nothing outside said lab, but told me to go in the main entrance and turn right. She said I'd see it right away. I thanked her. She nodded and continued with her mother toward the pharmacy. I guided my daughter back outside and toward the next building. When we got to the right building and found the lab, my relief vanished. The waiting room was packed. There was only one person at the reception desk, a woman with a stern face and reading glasses on the end of her nose. I approached the desk and signed in. I told her we had an appointment. The receptionist barely looked up from her computer. She told me to take a seat and that it would be at least an hour wait. I told her we had an appointment for 2 o'clock. It was 1:55 now. She said everyone there had an appointment and they were short-staffed today. My daughter was fidgeting beside me. I knew an hour wait would be difficult for her. I told the receptionist my daughter had special needs and gets anxious in medical settings. I asked if we could be seen sooner. The receptionist looked up. She said everyone has to wait their turn. I took a deep breath. I told her I understood they were busy, but my daughter's condition makes waiting in crowded spaces difficult. I mentioned her sensory processing issues. The receptionist said that wasn't her problem. She told me to take a seat or reschedule. Several people in the waiting room were watching us. My daughter was rocking back and forth. This meant she was getting overwhelmed. A woman who had been sitting nearby stood up and walked to the desk. She wore expensive clothes. She had that. I need to speak to the manager energy. Karen complained she'd been waiting for 45 minutes already. She said she had to cancel an important lunch. She asked if we were going to skip ahead of her. She said she didn't think so. The receptionist looked between us. I tried to say I wasn't asking to skip ahead of everyone. I was just asking if there was any accommodation. Karen interrupted me. She said we all have places to be. She said her time is valuable too. She mentioned having a very important meeting that afternoon. She turned to address the entire waiting room. She asked if they thought it was unfair if we got to go ahead just because we didn't want to wait like everyone else. Some people nodded or murmured. Others looked uncomfortable. I tried again to explain I wasn't trying to cause problems. I said my daughter has documented special needs. Karen interrupted me again. She said everyone has special needs these days. She mentioned her son has anxiety too. She said she doesn't use it to cut in line. That's when I lost it. I told her she doesn't know anything about my daughter or what we deal with every day. I said this isn't about her lunch or her meeting. This is about basic human decency and accommodations that exist for people with disabilities. Karen asked how dare I speak to her like that. She asked if I knew who she was. She said her husband is on the hospital board. I told her I don't care if her husband is the Queen of England. She has no right to put herself into a conversation that has nothing to do with her. The waiting room went silent. The receptionist looked panicked and picked up her phone. A nurse came from the back. She asked what was going on. I explained the situation. The nurse listened, then nodded. The nurse told us they have protocols for patients with special needs. She said she could take us to their sensory-friendly room right away. Karen's jaw dropped. Karen said this is ridiculous. She said she'd been waiting for almost an hour. The nurse told her their policy is clear about accommodations. She said Karen's wait shouldn't be much longer. As the nurse led us toward the back, Karen was still protesting. Several patients in the waiting room were giving her looks. The nurse took us to a quieter room with dimmed lights. She said their regular receptionist knows about these accommodations. They had a temp today who wasn't familiar with all their policies. I started to apologize. The nurse told me I was advocating for my daughter. She said never apologize for that. The blood draw went well in the calmer room. As we left through a back exit, I heard the nurse explaining accommodation policies to the receptionist. I saw the manager talking with Karen. Karen was gesturing and pointing toward where we had been. 2 days later, I got an email apologizing for the incident. It said staff would get more training on accommodation protocols. They also mentioned the regular visitor had been reminded about proper behavior in healthcare settings. I grew up in a small working-class town where football wasn't just a sport, it was practically a religion. Our high school games drew thousands of spectators. People talked about it year-round. Kids started playing organized football as young as 6 years old. Even when we weren't playing organized ball, we were always throwing a football around in backyards and schoolyards. I was pretty good at football, respected among the neighborhood kids, but one kid dominated all of us. Everyone called him the fourth because he was the fourth generation with the same name. He was one of the rich kids who normally went to private school in the city about 25 miles away. The fourth was physically imposing. He stood a good 6 inches taller than the rest of us 8th graders when he was only in 6th grade. He was faster and stronger too. Since he went to private school, I only competed against him in neighborhood games and in track during spring meets. The fourth was a jerk to all the local kids. He constantly called us poor and worthless. He would throw our stuff into the creek near our football field. When any of us managed to outplay him, he'd accuse us of cheating, beat someone up, or just walk off in a huff. During middle school track championships, he beat me both years in the 100 and 200 meter sprints. We always finished first and second at every meet. High school brought football to a whole new level. We were now preparing to play for our school in town. We all thought the fourth would stay at his private school. To our disappointment, there he was on the first day of freshman practice, fully padded up. That's when I found out why the fourth had always been so much bigger and better than kids his age. He was older than most freshmen. My birthday was in November 1984, missing the September 30th kindergarten cutoff. The fourth's birthday was supposedly October 1983, also missing that cutoff, but that wasn't the whole story. We found out the fourth had failed 3rd grade at his private school and had to repeat. His real birthday was in 1982. He was a full 25 months older than me, yet we were competing in the same grade level. No wonder he was always bigger. The only reason he came to our public school was because the Catholic Athletic League had age rules for high school sports, so he couldn't play at his private school anymore. Freshman year, the fourth made varsity as a backup quarterback while I was stuck on junior varsity. His ego got even bigger after that. He was a freshman playing varsity in our football-crazy town. He got his driver's license and a brand new Camaro. He was the only rich kid at our school, and I both envied and hated him. He always reminded us of our social standing, making comments about how we had to walk or ride bikes while he drove his fancy car. He'd mock us for shopping at discount stores while he wore expensive clothes. The fourth spent the following summer at various football and speed camps, while us poor kids just played ball among ourselves. Sophomore year came and the fourth was now starting quarterback, with me as his best wide receiver. He was an excellent passer, but his physical advantage over the rest of us was starting to shrink as we all grew. We both got all-state honors and finished the season 13 wins and 2 losses, losing in the state semifinals. The fourth began getting noticed as a potential college quarterback. which made his head even bigger. Junior year came and the fourth tried to become a team leader, but his arrogance and constant put-downs wore everyone down. I had grown to 6 feet 3 inches by then, looking the fourth in the eye, and I was faster too. We both got all-state honors again, but our team finished 7 wins and 4 losses with an early playoff exit. The fourth blamed the rest of us for being terrible players. I was also starting to get some recruiting letters. That spring, our longtime football coach got sick and retired. The school brought in a new coach with a completely different system, no more drop-back passing, but a mobile quarterback with lots of options. Before summer, our team met with a new coach who told us about his system and how we could prepare over the summer. The fourth was angry about the new system because it didn't match his playing style. His family tried legal action against the Catholic Athletic League to let him play at his former private school, but they failed. They even tried moving to another city but missed some deadline. He was stuck with us. He spent summer traveling to football camps to impress college scouts. I had a different plan to finally beat the fourth and become the quarterback myself. I talked with our coach, who told me that whoever played best would get the starting position. I spent the entire summer in our neighborhood field with teammates, practicing the new playbook. While the fourth was working on his footwork elsewhere, we were learning the actual offense we'd be running. When summer ended and fall practice began, it was the first time I'd seen the fourth since school let out. He was shocked when the coach told us to separate into position groups, and I walked over to the quarterback section. I was now the bigger, stronger, and faster player. I'd been practicing all summer with our actual teammates. Given his status as a 2-time All-State quarterback, the fourth was given the starting position, but it was obvious who was better on the field. I played wide receiver while staying the backup quarterback. I wasn't happy about it, but things changed after we lost our first game. The fourth couldn't understand the playbook well, made bad option reads, and played terribly. In our second game, he got crushed by a sack and fumbled, leading to a touchdown for the other team. Though he wasn't hurt, the head coach had him sit out a series to recover. I stepped in as quarterback and never gave up the position. My passing wasn't great those first few games, but the game got easier for me. We won 14 straight games before losing in the state finals. I made All-State as quarterback, while the fourth became a bench warmer. All his college recruiting dried up. I accepted a full scholarship to the local university and got to play in front of 100,000 fans. I moved back to wide receiver and had a solid college career. While not NFL material, I traveled to bowl games and became the hometown hero, the poor local boy who made it to the big school and played on ESPN. Many of my college teammates went on to play professionally, and I think one will be in the Hall of Fame. This would have happened regardless of my rivalry with the fourth, but his life would be different. When his major college offers dried up, he couldn't accept interest from smaller colleges. He decided to repeat his senior year at a private boarding school in Pennsylvania, which had no age limit rules. There, he was the poor kid and almost 20 years old still in high school. After that, he played junior college football, then walked on at some directional university in Pennsylvania. He never played there, and eventually came back to our hometown to take over his father's car dealership. I stayed in the university town as a financial planner for a mentor I'd met in college. This mentor had followed my athletic career since my youth. His grandson had competed against me, and he was proud of my journey. He was an important figure in the community and took me under his wing when I first arrived on campus. A few years ago, he retired and left me his entire business on the condition that I keep jobs open for his family if they pursue this career after college. I'm not sure what happened to the fourth afterward. He sold the dealership, but his house went into foreclosure. He was married with kids, but they moved away. I hope life humbled him enough to stop being such a jerk, but perhaps I'll never know. In my mind, he'll always be that entitled brat who thought he was better than everyone else because of his family's money. Working as a security guard means dealing with store customers. Normally, I make them leave when they do something the store doesn't like. But one day I got to tell off an impatient woman at Ross. For some backstory, I worked security for a shopping center. Part of my rounds when I first clocked in was checking in with Ross. They often called me to help stop someone from stealing. On this day, the store was packed. I was talking to the loss prevention person stationed at the door. We were checking what manager was in charge for the night and seeing how the store had been. I saw two ladies standing at the jewelry counter waiting for help. They kept looking at us. The loss prevention person told me he already called someone to help them. They just hadn't gotten there yet because the store was slammed. All workers were needed to ring customers out. The line was almost out the door. It was so long. We finished our talk, which was only maybe 3 minutes at most. I turned to walk out the door to finish my rounds. The woman suddenly yelled toward me. She needed help in a very rude tone. Not missing a beat, I turned around and looked at her. I told her he already called someone for her. I pointed to the loss prevention person. I said that as she could see they were swamped and the line was long. I suggested she grow some patience and learn to wait her turn. I then walked out of the store with the biggest smile on my face. My inner customer service rep felt good about finally being able to tell a rude customer off. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.